free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge, on the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello, I'm Allie Benjamin, and this is Growing Edge Live. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm glad that you're here listening. Whether you're here for the first time or you watch every week, welcome to Growing Edge Live. We are a platform for deep conversations with soul-centered individuals that are channeling their time, their talent, their energy, their resources, their creativity, their love into doing good works on this planet, helping to inspire people to wake up and live a bigger, more expanded version of their life that has fullness and meaning. And so today we're going to have a wonderful conversation with a dear friend of mine, and you'll get to meet him soon. So let's just start with a breath. Let's take a deep breath together, grounding and centering ourselves in this moment and opening up to the gifts of this growing edge conversation. Very good. So here we are. And as usual, I start off the show with Ask Allie. And today I have a question from Jackie. And Jackie wrote, I spent Thanksgiving with my family, and while it was wonderful, it was also upsetting. Some of us got into heated conversations, and I was triggered when my cousin made light of some of my concerns. We argued, and several family members excused themselves from the conversation. I felt unseen and sad, and now I feel hurt and angry with him and myself. Any insights? Wow. Well, Jackie, thanks for sending in this question. This is such a hot topic around the holiday seasons. And I think, I don't know if it was Wayne Dyer or some enlightened being said, if you want to see how awakened you are, just spend some time with your family of origin. And when I first heard that, I chuckled. It was also a little bit of a stab into my ego because, yeah, us that have been on this path for some time, when we're around our tribe, when we're around like-minded people that have done work on themselves, we get a sense that we've pretty much arrived at a level of maturity, spiritual maturity, that we think we're able to handle the conversations and the things that the circumstances and situations that occur in our life with a level of, as I said, spiritual maturity and self-awareness. But there are always those triggering moments that seem to blindside us and take us right back to, I can remember feeling some of these feelings that get stirred up in me as long as I can remember. So, Jackie, I'm thinking that this is not from something that your cousin said or didn't say or how you felt, as much as it has roots that stem way back into your childhood. And when we have sensitivities, triggers, soft spots, vulnerabilities that can get triggered when we're now an adult, it's a sign that there's a pattern running, probably in the subconscious, a pattern running that could say a story of something like, I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or I don't have what it takes, or I'm not fill in the blank. And when this happens, it's a good opportunity to do a little inquiry. And I see this as, I had Thanksgiving also, and I could notice that my energy got riled up a little bit, but because I've been aware of this for some time, that I have a tendency to get a little triggered when I'm around my family, I just simply pause and breathe a little bit and just notice what I'm feeling. And it's usually this strong feeling to say something or react in a particular way, defend myself. And so I just pause, I feel what I'm feeling, I identify the feelings, and I acknowledge them. And I see that, yeah, there's lots of different parts of me here at the Thanksgiving table. There's the 61-year-old Allie. There's the spiritual teacher and reverend. There's the wife, the mother, the grandmother. All of those parts of me are here at the table. And there's this part of me that feels agitated, or feels argumentative or defensive. And so when I take some time to just pause, step back, notice that these other parts are at the table too, and I get to choose in that moment what part of me is the one I want to give voice to. And so typically when that happens, when I'm sort of shuffling through the deck, do I want to express my frustration? Do I want to express my anger? Do I want to withdraw? Do I want to stay stuck in the victim place of feeling belittled? I simply feel them, and then I sort of recompose myself. And just that time, that maybe it's 20 seconds. It happens pretty quickly these days. Maybe it's a bit longer. But after a time, there seems to be a settling of the energy. There seems to be a calming down. And then I'm able to respond in a more spiritually mature way. And maybe that response is just being gentle with myself. Maybe that response is answering the question or giving my point of view, but it doesn't have the same forcefulness or the same defensiveness that I would have responded with or reacted with had I not taken that time, that pause. And so the good news is we get to do it again next year and the next year and the next year. And so we're going to have more opportunities to practice this. But the most important thing is to realize that we all do this. It seems to happen to all of us, even those of us that have been working on ourselves for many, many years. So Jackie, be gentle with yourself. Know that it was an opportunity for growth. It was an opportunity for you to take a deeper dive into some of these sensitivities that you have. And it was an opportunity maybe for you to build a bridge with your cousins. Maybe there's an opportunity for forgiveness. Maybe there's an opportunity to reach out and make a deeper connection and share one-on-one with them, the rest of the family too, whoever was there, from a place of love. And so I hope that's helped. And thanks for the reminder. And if any of you have a question, please send it to growingedgelive@gmail.com. And I'd love to bring your question alive in this conversation. So thanks, Jackie. All right. So now we are switching gears, and I'm so excited because my guest, Dennis Merritt Jones, has been someone that I've been aware of for decades. There he is.
Literally decades. Like 4 of them.
Oh, well, you have been such a blessing to so many of us. You know, here we are on the New Thought Media Network platform, and we truly are a community of New Thought teachers and centers and organizations and all kinds of folk that have had, I'm sure, an opportunity to read some of your books. I know I have, and here at the Satya Center, we've had study on, what was it, the Art of Abundance, which was one of our ministers created a class around it. And so I'm sure there's people watching or will watch the replay and just feel a fondness to be able to go a little deeper with you, because reading your book is one thing, but actually having a conversation with the author is a real gift. So I want to just share a little bit about Dennis. So he's an author, speaker, and mentor. Dennis has been on a quest to inspire and lift people to a higher expression of life. His vision is to guide people to their purpose, knowing that when one fully awakens to who they are and why they are on the planet, they share their gift to humankind and create an enriching life for themselves and the world around them. And so, Dennis, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good to see you. I remember when I was preparing for our chat, I remember I was living in my camper van at the time when I first had a conversation with you on the phone, and I went straight back to that moment because it was a bittersweet moment for me. I was at that time I was serving as president of the board of Anton, and it was my role or my job to talk to keynote speakers, to invite them to come to the Anton annual retreat. And you and I were having conversations about that, and also having conversations about how you might want to come and work with us to help us establish a new vision statement, a new mission. And so that's where we met.
Yep.
And as I said, I was going through some challenges at the time. We'd just lost our son. And so I think that's why it was, impacting, that moment when I got to meet you, and then later invited you to come to La Mesa in San Diego, and you worked with us for several days as a board.
Good session. I remember that very well.
Yeah, it was really, really special. And thank you. And although I'm not serving on the board of Anton anymore, that vision
That's
statement.
their loss, by the way.
Well, thank you. That mission and vision is still key and central to the work that Anton is doing to bring the New Thought movement together. So thank you for that.
Good.
Yeah. So for those of you there's people that will be watching that don't know you. And so will you share a little bit about you, who you are, how you got where you are now, and a little bit about your spiritual journey?
It's interesting. I was having a Facebook conversation with somebody yesterday about pain being a motivator, and the fact that I can sit here literally 45 years after I discovered New Thought, and be honest enough to say, I didn't find New Thought because I was inspired by lofty ideas and loving thoughts and spiritual ideas. I was found New Thought because my life was on fire, and not in a good way. A lot of pain, a lot of uncomfortable areas of my life at that time that needed to be embraced, healed, and transcended. And it's taken me this long. I don't think I've even finished the journey yet because I'm still here. But while you were talking in your Q&A session there, Ellie, you brought up a great tool that I have used for years, and I would love to encourage your viewers to use it too. You talked about emotional awareness, and that's such a huge process in becoming able to find the equanimity within ourselves to balance our energies and emotions, and to become aware of what's going on in our mind and our bodies. And our bodies will oftentimes tell us what's going on in our minds if we'll pay attention to our emotions, our feelings. They'll guide us to ideas and awarenesses that will help us drill down deeper into what the issue is, if we're present in the moment and willing to be able to witness. I was thinking about, as you were speaking, I was thinking, what an amazing thing self-awareness is. The ability to have a thought or a feeling and then step outside of that thought or a feeling and analyze it, look at it, prod it, probe it, feel it, and smell and taste and see if it works for you. And if not, to challenge it, and change the direction of the energy that's driving that thought, that feeling, that emotion. And that's no other being or no other creature on the planet has the ability to think a thought and then think about the thought they're thinking about, and then challenge it. So your response to the lady who Jackie was wonderful. I think we're spot on. Emotional awareness with the ability to then analyze what's going through the field of our emotions, let it inform us of what we need to know about, and change it. That I guess that's a long way around the barn to make the point that that's one of the primary things I learned over the last 45 years is emotional awareness and the ability that you can't change your life until you're willing to witness the life you have, and then uh, introduce new ideas that support a new direction for yourself. So good for you for that question that you responded so beautifully to.
Thank you.
So, I don't know what else I can tell you. Here I am, 45. I discovered New Thought in 1977 and became a minister in 1985. And the journey has been one of self-discovery for that entire time, generally being one that, as you know, I ended up as a writer and author because that's the best way for me to get out what's in my head, and so I can look at it and analyze it and speak to it, is to put it out in front of me in the form of the written word. And I've discovered that's been a great communicator for me, is the written word. I discovered I was able to touch a lot more people through the written word than I was on a pulpit on Sunday mornings, So that's my journey, and my goal, my vision is uh, guiding people to purpose. And that's, as you know, my passion is to help people find why they're on the planet, and to drill down into that why and discover the how to bring it to the world.
Yeah, beautiful. When did you find your purpose? And I'm sure it's evolved over the years, but was there a time early on when you first came into a New Thought Center or the New Thought teachings that you like, oh, whoa, this is my purpose? Because there was a time, you said 77, and then you became a minister in 85, I think. And so that was quite a bit of time that went by before you took the calling or answered the call or whatever. So what was the first instance, or if you can remember, or think up one of them, that you really realized, I have a purpose?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's a great question, because when I came into New Thought, I really was focused on, I got to find what that purpose is. I got to find it and fulfill it and bring it to the world, And then I slowly evolved to a point in my book, The Art of Being, is about understanding that purpose is not a point of arrival. Purpose is what's in front of our faces at any given moment, to be able to engage in that moment and bring the highest and best that we have to it. That's what my purpose is. It doesn't matter if I'm on the baseball field or at the beach walking, or in a boat, or writing a book. It doesn't matter. My purpose is right in front of me if I'm willing to see it and engage with it and bring the highest and best of myself to it in that moment. That's my purpose.
Mm-hmm. And how's that showing up today?
Well, I just finished a new book. I told you prior. It'll be out in May, and that book wrote me. From the time I negotiated with my publisher, I wrote the book in about 90 days, which is amazing for me to be able to consolidate ideas that quickly. That's because the energy behind the book was there all along. And so I just took notes. I just transcribed what was coming out and taking notes and put it into the form of a book. And it came out pretty well, I think.
Yeah, what's the title of that?
Excuse me. The title is When Fear Speaks, Listen. The subtitle is the Seven Messengers of Fear.
Wow.
And the whole concept of the book is to understand that fear is, people look at fear as though it's the enemy, and it doesn't have to be the enemy. If we're willing to look our fears in the face and dance with them and ask them what they're there for, they'll give us information we need so we can transcend them. And trouble is, too many people with our fears, we run away from them. We anesthetize them. We try to quiet them down, or to avoid them, or to numb them up. And they're not going to go away. They're there for a reason and a purpose. And the reason is that they have something to teach us. So when we're willing to embrace what the message is they have, we can then incorporate that teaching into a life of purpose and meaning for ourselves.
Yeah. You know, I talk to someone every week here on the show, and I've had some amazing people talk, and, you know, we have these conversations and we talk about new thought and we talk about spirituality and human potential and evolution. And it seems like a hot topic, or something that especially the ministers that I talk to, they are bringing up, that it seems like there's a softer, more vulnerable sense of self that the ministers are showing. There's more of a wanting to talk about the things that maybe in Science of Mind we haven't really embraced, like our fears, like our shadows, like those things that we've you know, in the past there's been a tendency to kind of brush over or do a spiritual bypass on. And so I'm just so thrilled to hear such a title, you know, that has the word fear in it.
Well, it's a universal concept. There's not a person or a creature on the planet that doesn't experience fear. And the question is, can we take that fear and use it in a way that enhances our lives and the lives of those around us, the planet in general?
Mm-hmm.
So
you said that this book kind of woke you up and you just started transcribing it. What was it? Was there a fear that's been active, like one that's kind of knocked on your door?
Well, the fear is what drove me into the teaching in 1977. Fear. There was issues going on in my life that I really had great anxiety and fear about. And I discovered by pursuing the teachings of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes specifically, and I just ingested everything I could with his teachings. It gave me the tools to mitigate some of those fears and to transcend them, but I still had to understand them and dance with them before I could do that. But to me, the answer to any problem a human being can have is God is all there is. At the end of the day, I don't care what the question is, the answer is God is all there is. So our journey is to find our way back to an awareness of that truth, to embrace that, to live with it, and let that become the essence that oozes through us. God is, I am. That's why, as you know, mindfulness is a huge part of my teaching, because I think that we have to be present in the moment in order to be able to embody into these ideas. You know, mindfulness is simply the ability to bring you notice our bodies are always in the present moment. They can't be anyplace else, right? But our minds are all over the place. They're out in front of us, fearing, worrying, doubt, and they're behind us with regret and anger and resentment. And all those energies snowball and drag us down. But when we're able and willing to be present in the moment, you know, that's where the life is waiting for us to show up, to embrace it, and to transform it by being.
You know, you said something. I think it was you were keynote speaker at an Anson retreat, and you said several times, "How are you breathing?"
Yeah.
and it just really stuck with me.
I work with, yeah.
And it really is really helpful. Just to you know, when you asked that question, and you did it a few times, it just was that coming back to the now, just like the tension sort of dissipated, and there was a stillness. There was sort of a tapping into what you said, the answer that God is all there is.
Right.
And that breath, that mindfulness of just breathing and being, and sort of adds a little chill to the tension.
It calms us down. Our breath is what tethers us to the present moment. You know, when we're conscious of our breath, it brings us back to the present moment, which is where life is waiting for us to engage with it so it can bestow its gifts upon us. But we have to be present in the moment before we can embrace those gifts, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
And breath is one of the ways that we learn to come back to the present moment. God is, I am. And I practice that all the time. I practice that when I'm in the dentist chair. God is, you know, he's got his hands in my mouth. I am, because I don't like people in my mouth, but that's one of, if I focus on something that brings me closer to the awareness of presence, I'm able to move through a lot of things that are uncomfortable for me that I otherwise would be suffering with.
Yeah, so that is a scary thing, to be at the dentist. Many of us have like childhood, you know, traumatic memories about that. I know I did. I used to have in England, the dentists aren't referred to as doctors. They're referred to as Misters or Mrs. And I had a Mr. Angel was my dentist, but he was far from an angel, or at least that was my thought of him at the time. So what would you, when someone is facing a fear, like a physical fear like that, what breath, what else? What have you learned in the writing of your book? And maybe you're not discussing actual physical fear in your book, but
fear is a multi-dimensional experience for people. It's physical, it's emotional, it's all of the things you can conceive of, But in the East they say you have to dance with your demons. And every fear represents something in our lives that is uncomfortable for us to deal with. And the whole book is about calling the demon in closer and embracing it rather than running from it, embracing it, whispering in its ear, oh, master teacher of the moment, I need to know what you know so I can transcend you. And if we're willing to engage and dance with the fear like that, it will tell us what we need to know. Then it's a process of embracing it and ingesting it and then taking action. Treat, and move your feet.
There you go. Okay, I think we have a moment of break. So why don't we go to a break now, and we'll see you back in just a few minutes.
Cool.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
We're back. So, Dennis, I know a lot of individuals that have, because I've done a lot of workshops and things on how to find your purpose, or vision quest, visioning, things like that. And it seems like over the years, I hear a lot of people say, well, I really want to write a book. And I've said it myself. And then I've talked myself out of it. And then I thought, well, all the books have already been written. Now, all of these things I know aren't true, right? But, this is the inner dialogue about why I should write a book, why I shouldn't write a book. And it's not just me. It seems like it's a common theme, especially with ministers and practitioners. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the writing process, because I'm a creative, I paint, and I'm way more familiar with how to tune into or listen to that muse when it comes to painting. And I honor it. Sometimes it's there and I can paint for 3 weeks straight without giving it a second thought. And I'm completely consumed by it. It's what I want to do. And then there's months where doesn't even occur to me. It will pop up and I'll think, oh, it's just not time yet. And I'm relaxed about painting. But when it comes to book writing, I'll occasionally write a few notes down, think up a few titles, and then it just builds this anxiety in me of hell no, this is the worst idea in the world. I couldn't do this. But then, so I know I've said a lot and I'm rambling on a bit about it, but
I get it.
Talk to us about how do we do it? How do we move from being having an idea that we might want to write a book or write something, an essay, I don't know, and then not be able to do it?
Well, I think that as you know, I do mentoring with a lot of people, and a lot of people want to be writers or to develop their voice, their authentic voice, which is however they express themselves in the world. And the one thing I tell just about every writer that wants to write a book, I said, writing the book is really the easy part. It's getting it out to the world that takes a little more of a work and challenge but it's a process. The writing of the book, you have to be willing to understand. I believe that every person, when they come to the planet, the gift they bring to the planet already is contained within them. And it's about giving yourself permission to groom it and bring it out and let it air out and find its own voice. For some of us, it's music. For some, it's art. For others, it's the written word. I think that most people that I know have a book within them that is eager to get out, but they don't know, give it the voice, as you said, how to do it. What I know is that I started out as a musician, as you know, and I was writing music. And then when I became a minister, the music kind of morphed into written word, lectures, talks, things like that, classes. Then when I retired from the pulpit, I decided that I still had more to say that needed to be said through me, through my voice. So I just sat down, I started taking notes. And I started out with writing a daily blog, 500, 800 words a day. And I just built my subscriber list from ground zero up, friends, family, neighbors, anybody who would be interested in receiving my emails. So I'd send out a daily, and I got up every morning at 6 o'clock and I wrote this 500 to 800 word essay and then sent it out to my mailing list. And the mailing list grew exponentially as I became more expert at what I was doing. But you don't start out being a best-selling author the first time you write. Generally, you have to develop your style, and for me, it's about witnessing what wants to be said, what needs to be said, and then how to give it a voice. I, like every other writer, I've run into writer's block a number of times, and the discipline that I have developed for myself is when that happens, I just sit there and I dedicate myself to letting something come out of me that goes onto the paper, whether it's a thought or an idea or some concept that has a thread in it of something that I know needs to be said. What I ask myself on a daily basis when I want to write something new, like I do articles for magazines, Science and Mind magazine and different magazines. I ask, what does the world need to know right now in this moment? What does the world need to know that I can find my voice to bring it forward? And if I listen carefully, it will tell me, the voice within me will ascend and tell me exactly what needs to be spoken to. And knowing that there's only one of us here, the voice that coming through me has a place of receptivity someplace. To There's those that need to hear what needs to be said, whether it's through the spoken word or the written word. And so it's about being willing to be present with your self, capital S, and say what wants to be said here, and then take notes. And the key is to not analyze what you write, not right away at least. Okay, so there's a process of the discipline. One of the books that I would strongly recommend is a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. He's the guy who wrote the screenplay for Bagger Vance. Great movie. But he talks about the disciplines required to become a creator, author, writer, artist, etc. And it's a great book. I recommend it. The Art of War, or The War of Art, not The Art of War, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Great book, easy read, but it'll get your butt back in the chair and give you some inspiration to start creating what needs to be said that you're willing to be the voice, the mouthpiece for. Courage. My first publisher years ago, I received some pretty nasty criticism on my first book, which was, and then there was peace. This was back in I don't remember what it was, doesn't matter. But I received some pretty nasty criticism on it. And looking back at it today, I can understand why. But at the time, I went to my publisher and said, I don't like this. This hurts, it's not fun. And she said, honey, here's what you need to know. The further the monkey climbs up the flagpole, the more of his ass is exposed. In other words, if you want to be a writer and you want to have an audience, you have to be willing to take the shots, because there'll always be somebody they live to, they're called trolls. They live to discount you or to kick the sand underneath your feet out. So you can count on it. If you want to be a writer, the world is full of critics who are only willing. They'll be standing in line to give you criticism. But if you let that stop you, then you're not following the voice that really wants to be expressed through you.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful to hear that someone that's written so many books still has those sensitivities and moves through it, knowing that that's just part of the whole thing.
Well, what's required is passion for what you're writing about. You have to love what you're writing about. You can't just take an idea that doesn't live in your heart already. That's why the things I write about, I try to write about things that are relevant and relative to what's going on in the world and people, the world. Because like this new book on fear is a huge issue on this planet. And it's getting more and more so as we get into the elections and what's going on in the Middle East. Holy cow, everybody has got fear. So find a topic that is universally something that people want to know more about, and infuse your own consciousness into it and express a point or a thought. But you can't be attached to whether people like or approve of what you're saying or not. If you do, you're screwed. Excuse me. It's just not the more, there's a great theory I use with my students. It's called high involvement, low attachment. Be highly involved in the creative process of whatever you're doing, but don't be attached to the results of how it's going to go over, how it's going to be received. Because I guarantee you, there'll be those who are only too willing to find fault with it. You have to transcend that fear. Oh, there's a fear right there. Fear of not being enough. Fear of shame. Yeah.
So you've written all these wonderful books. You've just authored a new one. Right. And I also know that you have done, because I was looking, I won't say trolling, but I was searching through your Facebook stuff, and I noticed some images of you in some sacred places, travels, Egypt, Machu Picchu. And I'm wondering, do you tell us a little bit about your travels, and have you gone with groups?
Yeah, I have in the past. Back when I was running a church, we took groups to China, to Teotihuacan in Mexico, the sacred sites there. There's it's a double-edged sword taking a group on a trip, because you become like a sheep herder, kind of watching everybody the whole time you're there. And it's I don't do that anymore. I travel still. I just was in Jamaica 2 weeks ago and did a 3-day master class for the wonderful people in Jamaica, and it was great fun. I was able to, I think, tap into the culture a little bit and bring the resonance to my message via that in a way that they would grasp it more fully. So yeah, when you travel, you have to be willing and able to submerge yourself into the culture you're in, and then find your way to find the universal truth there. Because if God is all there is, the universal truth is everywhere. We don't have to find it. We just have to be willing to unveil it where it is, to see it and bring it forward.
Yeah.
So
I've done quite a bit of traveling myself too, and I fancied myself. Michael and I, my husband and I, had thought at some point we might like to take groups over, especially to the British Isles,
yeah,
as that's where I'm from, and and my mother was born just outside of Glastonbury, which is very close to Stonehenge, and so I thought about structuring a trip, and I don't know, I lost that, fell away, because the idea, once we got into the details, trying to organize transportation and
yeah.
lodging and all of that
Well,
stuff.
you know what? There's something for everybody. There's people that love doing that, to do
Yes.
what you're describing now. And I think of people like Kathy Ann Lewis. She loves to take groups out into Egypt and whatnot. And probably the more people, the better. I'd have a hard time with that. I'd be worrying about them the whole time I was on the trip.
Yeah, me
Making
too.
sure they had everything they needed. So, but there's people who love doing that sort of stuff, and God knows the world. I think that I think I heard a status. I think about 29% of the people, citizens of the United States, have passports,
What?
which is a sad statement. Yeah.
29?
Well, I'm just pulling out of the air, but it's something like
Right.
that. Okay, it's
Yeah,
less
that's
than a
just
third, I believe.
shocking.
It is. They've never had a chance to experience other aspects or parts of the world where there are many diverse cultures and opportunities to grow and learn and to embrace and to understand. I think that every American should be forced to travel abroad to see what's going on in the world, and then learn from it in a way that makes them and their country a better place.
Yeah, that was always so shocking to me. I moved here when I was 14 and had done a fair bit of traveling. My parents were athletes at a very highly competitive Olympic level. And so we traveled a lot, and I saw a lot of different cultures and people. And I think Europeans do travel
Oh yeah,
more because everything's so close.
yeah.
And so when I moved to America, and I had been visiting my mother moved here when I was 7. So until I was 14, I would come back and forth almost every year. And I was surprised when I got into high school how many of my friends had never been abroad.
Mhm.
And also, as I would watch the news and just be submerged in the culture, I realized Americans, they kind of have a bad rap in the rest of the world for being know-it-alls and this and that.
Called the
And
ugly American syndrome. That's what it's
and
called.
I really realized that, yeah, travel is so important, because Americans, and I am an American, and I have American children, and so I'm not putting myself above this, but we can get a sense that we know best, or we're the kingpins or the queenpins. We have a better sense of what's going on in the world than anyone else, and our media and our press kind of promote that idea that
Yeah.
we are the superpower.
Yeah.
And I think travel and going to other countries and seeing how people live, and yes, America is a superpower, and yes, most of the countries do watch American television, but there's such an opening of awareness of when you do travel, when you get to experience the richness of other cultures and the way they pray and the way they interact and consume and organize their time and their energy. It's quite enlightening, and it can give one, when when you come home, this sense of, oh, it's a little bit of humility that occurs once one's
Mhm.
done a bit of traveling.
Well, it's an educational process. I think that Americans, you're right. They, for a large part, they think they're the best at everything, and when you get across the pond or in different areas of the world, you discover that we have human beings have more in common than we have in difference. But we have to seek for what we have in common, and that's why I keep going back to the phrase, "There's only one of us here." Irrespective of what country you come from, we're still only one of us here. When we can resolve our issues with that sense of awareness, the world will be a better place. And uh, I guess that's part of our job as new thoughters, is to bring an awareness of presence to the world in a way that everybody gets a chance to experience it in their own way, but to bring with it that sense of healing, that sense of division and aberrant behavior that we have towards each other, because it's not healthy.
Yeah, it's really challenging these days. With everything that's going on, you touched on the war in the Middle East and what's going on in Ukraine and around the world. And here we are thousands of miles away, but yet it definitely impacts us. How do what's your current thought on here we are on a new thought platform? What can we do in our communities to address this unrest within ourselves as we witness the unrest and the violence and the division going on in the world? What can we do in our places?
As within, so without. I think it's important that we seek again. When you feel that sense of separation from somebody because of their behavior or whatnot, take a deep breath and ask yourself, if there's only one of us here, what is it that I can see in this person or the situation that is common to my own truth, rather than what's different from it or what I don't like about it? I think a lot of the issues that create division among human beings is fear. Fear separates, love heals the separation. And so in our own way, we have to continue to ask ourselves, how can I become a better lover of humankind? Not easy sometimes, the way people behave, and we're always judging people as right and wrong. And so to be able to transcend judgment, which I have to admit, I don't always do the best job at that. Ask my wife, sitting and watching the 6 o'clock news, sometimes I get sucked into the drama of it all, and she has to remind me to breathe, come back to center. And love transforms. And if there's only one of us here, and I believe that God in its highest vibration is love, what alternative do we have but to resolve everything with love?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would your growing edge message be? What would your new thought be to the world at this point? If we're standing or sitting or whatever here at the very green growing edge of our own becoming, what's and by the way, we're of a particular age, but there's way more younger people that see things very differently than the way we do. And with people not attending church as much, especially the younger folk, so considering all that, what would your message be to the younger people that are, not, that must be completely, I can't imagine growing up during this time, so I can look at my kids and my grandkids, and it's just a whole different world. So what would you say to the younger generations from your age, from your time where you are, considering what they've got, the enormous challenge of just the current day challenges?
Well, I think that I would start out with making a statement that who you are matters. You wouldn't be on the planet if you didn't matter, right? And who you are matters, but it's what you do with who you are that matters the most. And so you have to develop a sense of self, capital S, that gives you a sense of belonging to the tribe, the humankind itself. And when you really embrace the idea that you're on, as I said earlier, I don't think our purpose is a point of arrival. Our purpose is to be the best human being we can be in any given moment, irrespective of where we are, what we're doing, where we're standing, to bring the highest and best of ourselves to that moment. That doesn't take skill. It doesn't take talent. What it takes is a willingness to be present in the moment and trust and bring the essence of who we know ourselves to be. I guess that's why becoming spiritually grounded is such a huge, important part of what we're talking about. If you really truly believe that you're one with Source, one with God, how else can you behave in the world but as an emissary of that light? And young people today, I think that social media probably doesn't help the problem with them finding their own voice, their own sense of self. Meditate on a regular basis. That's the best I can say is meditate, take classes, do things that give you a sense of being aware that you're more than just this body, the skin encapsulated ego that we live in, that we're here on purpose, we matter, and that it's our responsibility to develop how that looks in the world and to share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
And maybe get outdoors, go outside.
oh yeah.
And maybe travel.
Those are all good. Travel is probably one of the best ways to learn that there's more than one way to do life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I've got my brother and his wife are coming over from England next month, and they've got 2 boys. And I was just there in June, and I've got 6 nieces and nephews, so I had a chance to see how English young ones are, same as the Americans. My grandchildren here are on their tablets a lot and consumed with that and YouTube videos, and same with the English kids. And I chuckled when my sister-in-law said that the boys wanted to they wanted to visit a Walmart, a Target, a Best Buy, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
consumerism at its height. Yeah,
that's what happens when they're consumed with the screens, the devices, and all of that advertising and consumerism.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So I guess what the world needs now is maybe for us as the ones who've been on the planet a bit longer to do the hard task of taking our grandkids for a walk or taking them to do some activity outside. That's what I'm being reminded of.
What I hear you saying is to get our children away from their devices, and be, it is amazing. You walk down the street, you see all these kids sitting together in one spot, but they're all looking at their own phones and texting. They've lost the art of communication and friendship, other than through their tablets. So yeah, maybe that's a good place to start, is to invite them to maybe discipline them to leave their phones at home one day a week to start out with, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I'm not a parent, so I am a parent, but I'm not a parent of little ones that I can have. So I kind of just sit from a distance and watch. But yeah, it's not. I guess we'll see. Only time will tell as to how this time, this era, this with the internet and everything going on, will impact us or humanity.
You've heard the saying: if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Becoming part of the solution means becoming proactive with everything we do, from choosing the programs we watch on TV, which I don't always do the best at. I try. I try not to watch the news more than 10 minutes a day, because it's just brings me down. It's important to be informed, but to not obsess about what's going on in the world, because it doesn't do any good unless you put wheels on it and do something about it.
True. So we're coming to the end of our show, and I'd love it if you would share maybe 1 or 2 spiritual practices or things that you do when the world's getting a little heavy, or how do you reconnect with the truth?
I remember the teachings of Buddhism, the 3 jewels. Dharma, the Buddha, nature, and Sangha, and come back to this. Don't make your spiritual practices difficult. Just be present, be here now, and seek spiritual community. Whether that's one person on the phone, I still talk to my prayer partner who lives in California, on occasion, not as often as we used to, but seek people around you who are able and willing to support you on your journey as you will them. Seek relationships that are not just empty. Seek relationships that give you a chance to bring the best of who you are to them, and vice versa.
Well, that's a good prescription for us that are, hungry for.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if people want to go to my website, they can download. I've got a bunch of ebooks on mindfulness and different practices. If you just go to the press room on my website, DennisMerrittJones.com, you can download all these ebooks and study guides from all my books free of charge.
Wow.
That may be a place to kickstart a growth pattern, is to focus on what you want more of, not what you don't want.
Yeah.
That's the challenge in our world right now. We're focusing on what's wrong rather than what's right.
Exactly. Counting our burdens rather than our blessings.
Right. Yeah.
So your new book's coming out in May.
Right.
And the title again?
When Fear Speaks, Listen.
Mm.
The seven messengers of fear.
Great.
And when we get it that all fear is attached to a concern of loss or death of some sort, you can see how it applies to every area of your life. Very profound, I think. I'm excited about the book. I think it's going to be, and I'll be writing a study guide on it that'll be ready by the time the book is out too.
Wonderful. Do you ever, I know you've done this in the past, you've led online things. Will you be doing anything with the book?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely will, because I think it's such a universal topic. I'm definitely planning on developing a class, online class, for whether it'll be a one-day thing or spread over a few weeks. But I think that it's rich. This book is rich with ideas that will help people change their lives in beneficent ways. Well,
thank you, Dennis. I'm so thrilled to be able to connect with you. It's food for my soul. Yeah. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And thank you to Dennis and Michael, our producer, and New Thought Media Network. And we will be back next week with my guest, Mark Anthony Lord. So thank you. Peace and blessings. Love you.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth, to live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.